Good morning, YouTube. It's Saturday, April, what is it, 6th? And it's not really early morning, it's about 11. I did go to work today for a little bit. Got home, or not home, but my hotel, and having a cup of coffee, so I thought I'd make a video about the events of the week. My wife says I need to put a positive spin on things, and she's right. There are a lot of positives about living in the United States of America today. There still are a lot of positives. This is the greatest country on earth. But we've had kind of a rough week. Patriots, those who love liberty, and those who support the Second Amendment, we've had a tough week. So I may have to split this into a couple of different videos because I want to try to keep them at 15 minutes. Today, or not today, but this week, Oregon has one-upped Florida in their law that they passed, which not only raises the age limit to buy firearms, long guns, primarily to 21, but it also criminalizes possession of guns by anyone under 21. Horrible, horrible piece of legislation. Thank you, Florida representatives and senators, for leading the way in that. Thank you very much. We also had Deerfield in Illinois, a town in Deerfield that pretty much banned everything. Yeah, you can have revolvers and maybe some a Glock 26 with a standard 10-round magazine or something like that, but they banned almost everything else. And they gave 60 days for all residents to get rid of their firearms. Wonder how that's going to work. How are you going to verify it? What's going to happen? And I'm reading. I apologize for that. I hate to read on a YouTube video because it just looks bad. But there's so much that I have to keep track of. And last week it was a Supreme Court, or the week before maybe, it was a former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens that came out basically saying it's time to repeal the Second Amendment. The heck is that? We just lost a lawsuit yesterday in Massachusetts on the ban of AR-15s and AK-47s, and I believe that it encompassed some other types of rifles also, but I don't know all the details of it. But the state district attorney was sued for that ban, and it went to a federal judge, and he basically said, nope, that's constitutional. We had a big week of losses, and I don't see much positive spin to put on that. And then, you know, outside of the Second Amendment, you have things like the Facebook scandal that came out, where, oh, we didn't know this. What do you mean we data mined 30, 40, 50 million or 400 million or whatever it was users? We had no idea about that. Sorry. Oh, it happened 2.5 years ago. Yeah, we didn't know about that. You know, bull hockey. Bull hockey, you didn't know. You knew and you were complicit. And now you're trying to figure out a way to save face and not look quite as bad as what you do to most people right now. Hadn't been a good week. Hadn't been a good week for freedom. I want to go into a little bit of history on why the Second Amendment is so important and is so unique to the United States of America. More and more of my British friends, and I've worked with a lot of British guys, British, Irish, in the course of my years of building power plants and things like that, especially over in the Middle East. A lot of Brits over there. And their attitudes seem to be changing a little bit, more in favor, or at least less critical of America. Pardon me, I just bumped the table. At least less critical of America for our Second Amendment. Because look at what's going on over there now. London just overtook New York City in murders. They're having a stabbing epidemic. Hey, congratulations, you took away guns. So you can put a tick in the box that says our gun murders have gone down. Your knife attacks have skyrocketed. They've gone to the moon. So is the goal just to say we have reduce murders by guns? Yes, yay! Look at us, yay! Or is it to reduce crime altogether? I always thought it was to reduce crime altogether, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to give a history lesson on the Second Amendment, though. And I want to go all the way back to 149 BC. The Punic Wars were wars between Rome and Carthage. Carthage was a city-state that was on the northern tip of what is now known as Tunisia in North Africa. Carthage was a rich nation, a rich city. They had lots of gold, lots of stuff. And Rome wanted their stuff. They fought a couple of wars, the First and Second Punic Wars, but those aren't the ones I really want to concentrate on. What I want to talk about is the Third Punic War, and that was what ended with the destruction of Carthage. They had a 50-year truce between the Second and the Third Punic Wars. This truce required Carthage to supply Rome with, I forget the exact amount of silver, but they had to pay a certain amount of silver every year, and they had to give up some of their young people. That was one thing the Romans loved to do, was take the young people. And that was not just Rome. It was, you can read that all through histories, that they would take the young men of the conquered peoples and train them up and make them courtesans and train them to different levels in their government. And that way they would basically destroy the culture of the group that they conquered without just utterly destroying everybody in that culture or in that nation. So the orator Cato was known after his visit of Carthage, and he saw the prosperity and how well they did. They expected them to be, I guess, in shambles after 50 years of living kind of under Roman rule, but they didn't. They flourished. And Cato came back and was known to have said it didn't matter what he was discussing, didn't matter what the topic was, he ended everything with, and I think Carthage should be destroyed. So the Romans launched a campaign against Carthage. Long story short, it ended with the Carthaginians giving up all of their personal weapons. And this is a city of about 400,000 people back then. They gave up all their personal weapons. And the deal was, yes, you lay down your arms and we will treat you fairly. And to the Romans, treating them fairly meant slaughtering 350,000 of them, 350 to 360,000 of them, and taking the rest, 40 or 50,000, as slaves. You can find examples similar to this all through history. All through history. Yep, just don't fight us. Lay down your weapons or agree not to fight us and we'll treat you fairly. And in a short order, the culture doesn't exist anymore because the people don't exist anymore. They're totally destroyed. Man, woman, children, everything destroyed, killed, slaughtered. Not only that, but Carthage itself was burned to the ground. All the buildings were destroyed. They completely and totally annihilated that culture. Fast forward to 1774, and I discussed this in another video. 1774, right here in Salem, Massachusetts, was one of the tipping points, one of the big events that spurred on the violence that occurred to start the Revolutionary War. The discussions had been going on for a long time. The outrage of the colonies against the crown had been building and building and building because the crown had been usurping power and had been taxing and basically trying to squeeze the colonists for as much as they could get out of them. And it was working. In 1774, the governor of Massachusetts had outlawed basically town meetings except for once a year. And the townspeople of Salem basically said, yeah, up yours, we're going to have a meeting. And the governor sent troops, redcoats, to break it up, and they were driven back by 3,000 men. And back then, at 16, you were considered a man, so they were 16 to 60, and that's the report that the governor got. 3,000 men armed with rifles, plenty of powder, and plenty of shot. And skirmishes happened the redcoats tried confiscation of firearms. Then they tried confiscation of powder, the powder stores. The militias were without the militias, without the local militias, the Revolutionary War could not have happened, because the militias were not trained like a traditional army, but they were also not untrained. That and the culture back then, you had to understand that people's very survival depended on them being good shots with their rifles to hunt. They had to hunt game, or they didn't eat, or they didn't eat meat at least. It's not like you could run down to your local Kroger's and buy a slab of beef. So the culture was totally different back then. People knew where their food came from. Nowadays, you try to talk to a teenager about where the hamburger comes from, they say, oh, the supermarket. Oh, really? Supermarket just all of a sudden, it just appears. They don't seem to understand that there's a slaughter that goes on to feed them. Always has been. Always will be. Until we're all vegans, I guess. But with these affronts that have occurred this week and are continuing to occur, I don't really understand how we're going to move forward. To me, the legislative system, the political system, is broken beyond repair. When you have state senators and representatives in the state of Florida that have, for the most part, A+ ratings with the NRA, they have never voted negatively about firearms. Then they pass this horrible, horrible law that they did in Florida. Okay, who do I vote for now? NRA, tell me who to vote for. Well, I don't vote on who the NRA says anyway, but I use it as a guideline. At least they keep track of voting records, and they say, okay, these people were pretty much pro-2A, these people were not, based on voting records. Well, that just got all thrown out the window, because now we don't know who to vote on. We don't know who to... I mean, you can't rely on Republicans or so-called conservatives to vote conservative anymore. They're voting with their emotions. They're voting to feel good. They're voting because a bunch of children marched and said, boo-hoo, we're crying. We think that this ought to be done. Now give us our Tide Pods. We're hungry. Really? Our political system's broke, in my opinion, beyond repair. Our judicial system. Show me a district that's not infiltrated with liberal judges. Show me one. When all these things go to court, what's the chances you think that they're going to get overturned? And the law in Florida is going to get sent to the Florida Supreme Court, I'm sure. I give it 50-50 at best that it's going to get overturned. At best. Our judicial system does not work for us anymore. And if you need any more examples than that, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Susan Rice, Eric Holder are walking around as free citizens today. Not only as free citizens, but they are millionaires, multimillionaires, and they're gaining in power and wealth day by day. And look what they did. Judicial system's broke. Political system's broke. What's that leave us? Frankly, I think it's far past time that we restarted our state and local militias. I think that we need, on a county-by-county level, to start organizing and figuring out how we're going to handle communications and logistics and things like that. Even if it's only 100 people, it's better than nothing. But let's face it, how many people are willing to take a Saturday once a month and meet with a bunch of guys and women, men and women, and talk about something that is so ominous as the end of our liberty, the end of our freedom? Because that's what we're facing, folks. We're facing annihilation. We're facing our entire system that we grew up with, that we know, that we love, that we cherish, that we served in the military for, being annihilated and being done for. They don't want to, this whole idea of, well, nobody really wants to ban your guns. Nobody wants to take your guns. I think we have plenty of examples just in this week where we can say, yeah, bull hockey. That's not true. The ultimate goal is to have a 100% disarmed citizenry, because only then can you control them. Without arms, without firearms, without some way to fight back, we can be easily controlled by a very few people. Again, history shows that over and over and over. I'm going to get into a little bit about the NRA on the next video. I am a lifetime member of the NRA. I still support the NRA, but they've done some things that have really ticked me off lately. And I want to talk about that and how we can maybe put some pressure on the NRA to actually represent us in a different way. They go to the courts. The courts don't work. The courts are corrupt. And we've got to start thinking outside the box. We've got to start thinking more as patriots and as people who will be willing to do anything for our freedom and our liberty. Talk to you again later. Maybe I'll make another video next week and put it up. Thanks for watching.